There is a silence that follows you, not the silence of a library or a sleeping house, but the silence of a deep, uncomfortable truth. It is the silence that settles in the hollow space between your thoughts, the moment before you reach for a distraction, the quiet dread that whispers, "You are not in control." We must begin with an uncomfortable confession. You believe you are a rational agent, a master of your own destiny. Yet, your emotional life is a hostage negotiation. A single careless word from a stranger, a minor bureaucratic error, a moment of unexpected traffic, and the entire edifice of your composure trembles. You are, in that moment, exposed, not to the world, but to yourself. You are revealed as a prisoner, not of circumstance, but of your own reactions. You are a ship whose rudder is controlled by the slightest external breeze. We chase peace as if it were a distant shore, a lottery win, or a change in government. We believe that if only the world would align itself to our specifications, if people would be more reasonable, if justice were swifter, if our efforts were instantly rewarded, then and only then would we find rest. This is the great self-imposed delusion of the modern age. It is the belief that your inner state is an echo of the external world. It is the fundamental error of confusing the map for the territory. The ancient wisdom, however, offers a far more brutal, yet ultimately liberating, perspective. The Stoics, the Cynics, the great moral architects of history, they understood that the world is chaos, and that chaos is not the problem. The problem is your expectation of order. The problem is your demand that the universe conform to your personal sense of fairness. The philosopher-emperor Marcus Aurelius, burdened by the weight of an empire, did not seek to control the barbarians at the gate. He sought to control the barbarian within. He understood that the only true sovereignty is the sovereignty over one's own mind. This is not a video about managing your anger. This is a conversation about eliminating the very conditions that make anger possible. It is about building an inner architecture so robust, so profoundly rooted in reality, that the petty, fleeting storms of the world simply break against its foundation. It is about becoming, in the truest sense of the word, untouchable. To achieve this, you must master 5 ancient pillars. They are not easy. They are not quick. They demand a costly, lifelong commitment. But they promise a freedom that no external force can ever grant or take away. The first pillar is the most fundamental, the most difficult, and the most sacred, the pause. When an event occurs, an insult, a slight, a betrayal, a biological, chemical, instinctual surge ignites within you. It is the ego wounded and screaming for immediate retaliatory justice. Most people, tragically, mistake this spark for a command. They are puppets on the strings of their own impulse. They react instantly, justifying their fury as righteous, necessary, or simply unavoidable. They believe they are forced to be angry. But the Stoic, the one who seeks mastery, learns to recognize this spark not as a command, but as a warning. It is a signal that the ego is attempting to hijack the controls. Marcus Aurelius called this the discipline of assent. It is the rigorous, moment-to-moment practice of withholding your agreement to the initial emotional judgment. The event itself is neutral. The insult is just a sound. The traffic is just metal and time. It is your assent to the judgment. This is an outrage. This is unfair. I must respond. That creates the suffering. Consider the profound moral weight of this pause. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the theologian who resisted the Nazi regime, spoke of cheap grace. A grace that costs nothing, requires no discipline, and changes nothing. Our instant, reactive anger is a form of cheap justice. It feels good, it is easy, and it demands no self-control. It is the path of least resistance. The pause, however, is costly grace. It costs you the immediate, satisfying rush of retaliation. It costs you the illusion of being right. It costs you the comfort of being a victim. It is the moral equivalent of standing still when every fiber of your being demands flight or fight. The pause is the refusal to sign the contract of suffering. It is the moment you choose to be the observer, not the participant in your own emotional drama. It is the highest form of self-respect, for it declares, "My peace is more valuable than my need to be right." To practice this, you must introduce a simple yet revolutionary mechanism into your mind. When the spark ignites, you must mentally insert the phrase, "I am not this thought." You must create a deliberate conscious gap. In that gap, you apply the test. Is this an objective fact, or is it a subjective interpretation? Is the other person wrong, or are they simply different? The pause is not suppression. Suppression is a coiled spring. The pause is a moment of cold, hard analysis. It is the recognition that the world is not happening to you, but simply is. And in that recognition, the spark of anger, deprived of the fuel of your ascent, simply dies out. This is the first and most vital step toward true inner sovereignty. The second pillar addresses the greatest source of our external frustration: other people. We are constantly disappointed because we operate under a silent, absurd assumption that others should be rational, consistent, and morally perfect. We are shocked when a friend betrays us, when a politician lies, or when a stranger acts with profound selfishness. This shock is a symptom of a profound philosophical naivety. Plato, in his allegory of the cave, described men who mistook shadows for reality. We, too, live in a cave where the shadows are our idealized projections of others. We see the shadow of the perfect partner, the ideal colleague, the just society. And when the real person, flawed, self-interested, and driven by unconscious forces, steps into the light, we are not merely disappointed. We are enraged by the destruction of our illusion. We are angry at the person for failing to be the shadow we projected onto them. The imperfection principle is simple. Expect nothing less than the worst from human nature, and you will never be bothered by what you receive. This is not cynicism. It is prudence. It is the cold, hard realism necessary for survival and peace. Machiavelli, the cold-eyed observer of power, taught that a ruler must always assume that men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, covetous. This is not a moral judgment. It is a strategic reality. He was not advocating for evil. He was describing the baseline of human fallibility that any effective leader must account for. If you assume this baseline, then every act of kindness, every moment of honesty, every display of integrity becomes a profound, unexpected gift. You shift from a state of perpetual disappointment to a state of perpetual quiet gratitude. When someone disappoints you, you must not take it personally. Their actions are a reflection of their own internal chaos, their own unmastered life. They are acting according to their nature, a nature that is inherently flawed, just as yours is. To be angry at a man for being selfish is like being angry at a dog for barking. It is simply what they do. Your anger is a misplaced demand for a reality that does not exist. This leads us to Nietzsche's radical concept of amor fati, the love of one's fate. It is the acceptance and even the embrace of everything that happens, including the flaws of others. When you truly internalize the imperfection principle, you stop trying to change the world and start loving the world as it is. You love the chaos, the betrayal, the incompetence, because it is the raw material of reality. It is the necessary friction that hones your own virtue. Nietzsche challenged us to look at the totality of our lives, including the suffering caused by others, and say, "Yes, I want this again, and again, and again." This is not resignation. It is the ultimate affirmation of life. It is the recognition that the flaws of others are essential components of the tapestry of your own existence. Without the friction, there is no polish. Without the betrayal, there is no clarity. The moment you stop demanding that others conform to your perfect, internal script, you reclaim the vast energy you once wasted on frustration. You become a detached observer, capable of acting with clarity and compassion, rather than a wounded victim, perpetually surprised by the truth of the human condition. You become the master of your expectations, and therefore the master of your peace. The third pillar is the most counterintuitive, and perhaps the most powerful. Never respond when you are emotionally hurt. When you are wounded, when the words have landed, when the slight has been delivered, your instinct is to strike back immediately. To defend, to justify, to explain, to retaliate. This is the ego's final, desperate attempt to reassert control. It is a desperate plea for external validation. But here is the uncomfortable truth. An angry decision is a decision that will age poorly. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, repeatedly warned against the folly of acting from passion. He knew that the moment of injury is the moment of maximum vulnerability and minimum clarity. To speak then is to hand your enemy, or simply the careless person who wounded you, a blueprint to your soul. You reveal what hurts you, what you value, and where your defenses are weakest. You give them power over you. Consider the strategic genius of silence. Machiavelli, again, offers a cold, strategic insight. He taught that a ruler must always appear to be in control, and that silence is the ultimate display of power. When you are hurt, and you respond with immediate emotional force, you confirm the power of the aggressor. You validate their aim. You give them the satisfaction of having struck a nerve. You have played their game, and by playing you have already lost. But when you meet injury with silence, a profound, deliberate, and unsettling silence, you deny them that validation. You create a vacuum. They are left to wonder. Did it land? Did I misjudge them? Are they so strong that my attack was meaningless? The silence forces them to confront their own action, rather than reacting to yours. This silence is not passive. It is an active refusal to engage in the drama. It is a declaration that your emotional state is not for sale, and certainly not for rent to the person who just offended you. It is the ultimate act of self-possession. The silence is the time you use to apply the first pillar, the pause, and to apply the ultimate Stoic test. Is this within my control? The words spoken by another are not. Your response is, calm decisions age well. They are rooted in principle, not passion. They are strategic, not reactive. The best revenge, the Stoics knew, is not to be like your enemy. The best revenge is to outgrow them, to make their entire existence irrelevant to your peace. And that begins with the profound, unsettling power of silence in the face of injury. It is the moment you choose to be the mountain, unmoving, while the wind howls around you. The fourth pillar is the work of a lifetime. Build a strong inner world, the citadel. If the first three pillars are defensive strategies, this is the grand, offensive campaign. You cannot simply avoid anger. You must replace the empty space where anger once lived with something solid, something immovable. This is the construction of the inner citadel, the mental fortress that Marcus Aurelius described. What is this citadel built from? It is built from discipline. We have been sold a soft, comfortable lie, that freedom is the absence of constraint. But true freedom, the freedom that makes you untouchable, is the mastery of self-constraint. It is the ability to do what is difficult, what is necessary, and what is right, even when every instinct screams for ease. Bonhoeffer, writing from a prison cell, understood that the ultimate test of a man is not his belief, but his responsibility. The man who is undisciplined is irresponsible to himself. He is a slave to his appetites, his moods, and his fleeting desires. He cannot be trusted, not even by his own mind. The citadel is built by doing difficult things, waking up when you do not want to, honoring a commitment when the motivation has vanished, choosing the healthy meal over the easy indulgence, sitting in silence with your own thoughts, rather than fleeing into noise. Every act of self-control is a brick in the wall. Every time you choose the long-term good over the short-term comfort, you deepen the moat. When the external world throws its worst at you, financial ruin, public humiliation, personal tragedy, the undisciplined man collapses because his foundation is external. His self-worth is tied to his job, his possessions, his reputation. He is a house built on sand. But the man who has built his citadel knows that his true worth resides within the walls. His self-respect is rooted in his character, his capacity for endurance, and his commitment to his own principles. He knows that he can lose everything external and still remain whole, because the most valuable thing he possesses, his mind, his judgment, his virtue, is locked away, safe and untouchable, within the fortress he spent a lifetime building. This is the profound, uncomfortable truth. You must become your own safe harbor. You must be the one person you can always rely on, the one source of stability in a world of flux. This is the only true form of security. The final pillar is the ultimate redirection of your life force. Choose meaning over ego. The root of all anger, all resentment, all the petty bothers of life is the ego's need to win. The ego demands to be right, to be recognized, to be superior, to be validated. When the world fails to provide this validation, the ego throws a tantrum, which we call anger. Nietzsche, in his relentless pursuit of self-mastery, challenged us to move beyond the last man, the comfortable, conforming individual, and toward the Übermensch, the self-overcomer. The Übermensch is not a tyrant. He is a man who has created his own values and lives by them, regardless of external approval. He has transcended the need for the crowd's applause. The ego says, I must win this argument or I am weak. Meaning says, I must speak the truth, regardless of the outcome, for my integrity is my strength. The ego says, I must be respected by everyone, or my life is a failure. Meaning says, I must respect myself by living virtuously, for that is the only respect I can control. The moment you shift your life's purpose from the pursuit of egoic validation to the pursuit of meaning, a purpose larger than yourself, the world's slights lose their power. Plato's concept of the good, the highest form, the ultimate object of knowledge, is the philosophical anchor for this pillar. When your life is oriented toward a transcendent, noble purpose, whether it is service, creation, truth, or justice, the small, personal attacks become utterly insignificant. They are mere noise. Imagine a man climbing a vast, treacherous mountain. He is focused entirely on the summit. If a pebble rolls down and hits his foot, does he stop his ascent to argue with the pebble? Does he rage at the rock for its lack of manners? Of course not. He is too focused on the meaning of his climb. The pebble is irrelevant to his purpose. The ego is the pebble. The meaning is the summit. When you live a life of profound, self-chosen meaning, you are no longer playing the petty games of the ego. You are playing a game of cosmic significance. You are living by your own internal scorecard. And when you are focused on the eternal, the temporary cannot touch you. You have exchanged the fleeting, fragile validation of the crowd for the deep, unshakable validation of your own soul. These 5 pillars, the pause, the imperfection principle, the silence of strength, the inner citadel, and meaning over ego, do not promise you an easy life. They promise you a difficult, meaningful, and free life. You will still be insulted. You will still face injustice. You will still be disappointed. The world will remain the world, but you will have changed. You will have moved from being a victim of circumstance to the architect of your soul. You will find that you are no longer bothered by the things that once consumed you, not because you have become cold, but because you have become profoundly warm to the only thing that truly matters, the quiet, unshakable integrity of your own character. You will become untouchable, not because you have built a shield against the world, but because you have built a world within yourself that is infinitely more compelling, more real, and more valuable than the fleeting drama outside. And in that quiet, self-possessed strength, you will discover the ultimate freedom, the knowledge that your peace is not something you chase. It is something you are.